Everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Engaging Community Partners in Summer Meals Planning for the New Year. My name is Emily Pia, and I'm a Program Manager here at No Kid Hungry with my colleague Derek Lambert, who will be speaking today about summer meals. We both work on summer meals here at No Kid Hungry, and you'll be hearing a little bit more from me in upcoming webinars in this Schools Out, Foods In webinar series. We're so excited to kick off today with some really great speakers. I'm just going to start off with some housekeeping information to begin. If you're having any technical difficulties, whether accessing today's presentation or any audio difficulties, go ahead and send those in the question box, and I'll be able to triage those one by one. We love having your questions. If you have questions about today's content for today's speakers, please go ahead and chat those in the question box on the right-hand side of your screen as well. And we'll do our best to get to all of them today. There are a lot of you on the line. But if not, we can certainly follow up after the webinar. Speaking of follow-up, you'll receive a copy of the slides as well as a recording of today's webinar in your inbox shortly after the webinar today. So don't worry, you'll be getting these materials for you to access later. So without further ado, let me kick it over to my colleague, Derek.
All right, thanks, Emily. My name is Derek Lambert, Senior Manager here with Share Our Strength and our No Kid Hungry campaign. And I just want to say first, welcome to this year's edition of the Schools Out, Foods In webinar series. This is a webinar series focused on summer meals. This is geared toward program providers, agencies that support these programs, and others who are interested in the growth and expansion of summer meals programs for kids. So today we have our first webinar, which is focused on engaging community partners in summer meals planning for the new year. And we'll also provide a program overview. And we've got some great speakers today, so let's go ahead and dive right in. And so for the next slide, I just want to point out that we have a webinar series that will be ongoing, starting today all the way through June. We have the calendar here. Webinar recordings and slide decks will be available on our website for reference, and we will also be sending out information on how to register for these webinars to those who are registered for our What's New newsletter. So if you are not registered for our newsletter, that is the best way to stay up to date about these and other trainings. You can visit our website for additional information and resources, and you can see there's a button to subscribe for our newsletter. Visit us at bestpractices.nokidhungry.org. And I also want to call out that there is an updated resource center that allows you to search information about resources. You can type it in by program, if you remember something about a resource but don't remember what it's called. Our new resource center is much more user-friendly. So that is new to this year, and wanted to make folks aware of that. And I want to welcome our panelists. We are really excited to have a couple of really skilled panelists here today. I want to introduce Zeta Riker, who is a consultant with No Kid Hungry, in addition to many of her other roles that she has filled over the years. Zeta has over 15 years of experience in innovation and design of school meal programs and community food systems. Zeta has extensive school meal program experience and has served as the Director of Nutrition Services at the San Francisco Unified School District, which served over 6 million meals annually. During her tenure with San Francisco United, she designed and implemented programs such as Breakfast After the Bell, After School Supper, CEP, and the Future Dining Experience, which is a student-centered design thinking strategic plan. So we're thrilled to have Zeta with us today in supporting the No Kid Hungry campaign. And we're also very fortunate to have Mel Curtis, Director of the Moshannon Valley branch of the YMCA of Center County in Pennsylvania. Mel is the Director of the YMCA of Center County Anti-Hunger Programs that serves 4 branches in Center County and has worked at the YMCA for over 20 years and is very involved in his community and in other organizations. Mel thrives on challenges and constantly looks for new ideas and concepts to feed children to make his community a better place to live and to raise a family. So just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thanks to our esteemed panelists who you'll be hearing from. And just a quick note that we will have a moderated panelist Q&A. We're going to stop after Zeta and Mel speak. Each time we're going to stop and field audience questions. So if while they're speaking, there's something you want to know or you want to learn more, please type that into the chat box so that we can ask those questions of our panelists during the discussion. As Emily mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of folks on the line, so we're unable to open up the lines for the call. But if you can type in those questions, we'll field as many of those as possible during the time that we have today. And if we're not able to get to your question, we'll make every effort to follow up directly as well. All right, let's move on to the next slide. And Zena, I just want to thank you again for joining us today and for sharing your experience with Summer Meals and all of the programs that you supported, but specifically Summer Meals today. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Derek, and thank you to the No Kid Hungry team for hosting this summer webinar series. I'm excited to kick off the series and to give a high-level overview of the different components that we'll talk about today and that you'll cover through the rest of the series. So I'll start with a very brief program overview and definitions of the different roles and stakeholders. Then we'll discuss, for those who are new to summer meal programs, where to begin. We'll look at what role your organization could play, and how do you map out the summer landscape, and where do you find where the children are located. From there, we'll cover what possible partnerships can exist and how to engage and create a team of stakeholders. Next, we'll cover the different types of meal service models that are possible. And then for those school districts with us on the line, we can discuss a few different items that you should think about when you're starting to operate a summer program. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a very high-level timeline for summer meal program planning. And I want to say just a quick note before we begin that I highly encourage any organization, whether you're a public school or CBO, to connect with your state representative because every state has slightly different regulations, even though it is a federal program. It's really important to check in with them right from the start because they can really assist you in navigating the regulations as well as help you qualify specific sites and children and help you figure out what program is best for you. Okay, so where to begin? What are the different roles for the different summer meal programs? So as I mentioned, it's a federal program, so there are very strict regulations around which organizations can operate the program as well as which meals can be reimbursed. One of two main roles required is a sponsor. And the sponsor is responsible for the administration and accountability, so submitting the monthly meal claim for reimbursement of the meals. In order to be approved as a sponsor, an organization must have the financial and administrative capacity to oversee a summer program. So what does that mean? So for example, an organization must have enough funds to pay for meals and possibly staff up front before it receives reimbursement from the government. A sponsor must also have administrative capacity and knowledge to ensure program compliance and integrity. Now, the second role that's required is a site. So where the actual physical location where the children are being served. Eligible sites are those that either serve children in a low-income area or location, or those that serve a specific group of low-income children. And there are several different types of sites. And again, this is where your state contact can really help navigate exactly how to qualify a site under what type. But there are open sites where children, all children eat for free together as a congregate site. The site must be open to any children who walk in from the community. A restricted site, these are less common, but on occasion can be approved by the state to not be open due to safety or space or other reasons. And then there's a closed enrolled site. These are where these are programs or sites where they're maybe not located in the low income area, but they're serving a specific. They know they have low income children enrolled in the program. And closed enrolled sites, you would collect meal application information about those specific children to qualify. Now, sponsors can have up to 200 sites, but the number of sites must be approved by their state agencies. And the state is going to look at the capacity of the sponsor to be able to manage the required number of sites. Now, another role that is not necessarily required, but is highly, highly recommended, is to have a program champion or promoter. And this role is responsible for getting the word out to the community about the program and drives participation. It can often be overlooked, but it is vital to ensuring program success. This can be anyone from the mayor, an elected official, a local sports team. Even the children themselves are really great promoters. They can create posters, do little video snippets, all kinds of great creative things to get the word out and encourage participation. Open sites are required to post online and to make the sites and meal service times available to the community. That is a minimum that is required, but it's really highly recommended to go above and beyond and do more promotional and marketing activities. Another role that you may see sometimes in summer meal programs is when a partnership with a meal vendor. And a meal vendor is needed when a sponsor does not have capacity to actually produce the meals themselves. And this could be due to a number of different reasons, including lack of facilities, expertise, available staffing, and capacity. So in this model, a sponsor would contract with a meal vendor to produce the meals. Sponsors would still be responsible for the administration and monthly meal claims and accountability, but it would only serve the administrative function. And finally, again, most importantly, another very important role is funders and partners. These can be in the form of grants, direct financial funding, or in-kind resources such as equipment, space, even something as simple as providing printed copies of flyers and those sorts of marketing support can really, really enhance your program and drive children to participate in the program. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Derek for just a moment to cover the next few slides.
Thanks so much, Zeta, and I really appreciate that. Some really good information. We'll hear more from Zeta in just a couple of minutes, but wanted to also provide some background for folks on, depending on the type of organization you are, when you're thinking about summer meals and how to deliver these programs, you have a couple of different options. If you're a school food authority, and then if you're a community-based provider, your options may be a little bit more limited in terms of the federal program you can use to sponsor the program, but there are still a few different ways that the program can look and feel on the ground. So if you are a school food authority or a school nutrition program operator already operating school lunch or school breakfast programs, you have that opportunity to sponsor a program. As Zeta mentioned earlier, you can sponsor a program and also serve as a site, and you have a couple of different program options that you can utilize. Now, these are federally funded programs at the USDA. You can operate what's called the Seamless Summer option, which is an extension of an existing school lunch program agreement, or you can also choose to operate a standalone program, which is called the Summer Food Service Program. Now, there are a few differences here, and we'll share a resource if you want to dive into a lot more of the details. This is really intended as a primer, but a few things of note is that eligibility to operate the program is the same across both programs. You can qualify by location, identifying communities as high need using school enrollment data or census tract data, or you can serve communities that may not qualify at the aggregate level by identifying individual children and collecting forms that allow you to qualify individual children and to receive reimbursement for those meals. That being said, though eligibility is the same across the two programs, reimbursement is slightly different. The Seamless Summer option, meals are reimbursed at the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program free rates. The Summer Food Service Program, there is a different and higher meal pattern reimbursement for each meal type. It's actually the highest of all federal child nutrition programs. Another detail that's not noted here, but that is worth noting, is that the meal pattern is also different. For the Seamless Summer option, the school year breakfast and lunch meal patterns apply, whereas with the Summer Food Service Program, there is a simplified meal pattern. So on the next slide, there are some different options as well if you are a community-based provider, a non-school food authority, such as faith-based community, summer camp, YMCA. Your options are to really, if you want to sponsor the program, or if you want to sponsor a program, then also operate a site in multiple sites. But if you want to be the fiscally responsible for the program, in charge of the program in which you are participating, the Summer Food Service Program is the program for you. As we mentioned earlier, the Seamless Summer option is an extension of an agreement that a school food authority already has in place. This is not available to community-based partners that want to sponsor the program. They would rely on the Summer Food Service Program. That being said, if you're a community-based partner and you're not a sponsor, you're just a site, the place where a meal is served, then you can operate as a site with sponsorship from someone that's either operating under the Seamless Summer option, which would be a school food authority, or the Summer Food Service Program, which could be either a school food authority or some other community-based organization. The reimbursement, it's important to note that sponsors generally receive reimbursement for meals served. In most cases, sponsors are managing and overseeing the program, including the preparation and delivery of meals. And so the reimbursement would accrue to a sponsor and not a site in most cases. And again, looking at eligibility, is the same across both programs, and so would not be different for community-based sponsors compared to school food authorities. I know we've got a lot to cover today, so a quick pro tip, we'll include this in our follow-up. USDA has a helpful program comparison chart to look at differences between the Seamless Summer option, the National School Lunch Program, and the Summer Food Service Program, and we'll share that as follow-up to today's webinar. And as it pertains to planning, I know that we're going to get a little bit more into planning with Zeta here in just a moment, but I wanted to call out some great resources from No Kid Hungry, Share Our Strength, and the School Nutrition Foundation. There are Schools as Nutrition Hub is a website with many program planning templates that includes an operational workbook, which has project management tools, as well as background on the programs and draft planning timelines, and an action planning template that walks you through the steps that are necessary to implement a successful program in your district or in your program. I will note that these planning tools are geared primarily towards school districts and school food authorities, but that there are elements of these planning materials that would be useful for all sponsors. So again, a shout out for these resources, which were developed by the No Kid Hungry by Share Our Strength with the School Nutrition Foundation. These are really co-developed and made available to school districts as well as others. I want to thank the School Nutrition Foundation for their partnership in developing these resources, which are available to those on the line today. So without further ado, Zed, I'm going to kick it back over to you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some additional programmatic details.
Yeah, thanks, Derek, for that explanation and especially providing the additional resources. They are very, very helpful in planning your summer program. So once you have established what role your organization will play, you want to partner or establish or join a summer meals team. And together, you want to look at what is the landscape of where the children are during the summer. Who are the organizations working with children? And there's a few different ways you can do that. You can contact the State Department and see if there are existing summer programs already up and running and map those out. You can also, as Derek had mentioned, look and see by census tract and look at a map to see what areas have been approved as low income and therefore would be able to qualify for summer meal programs. Those of you that are public school nutrition departments, you definitely want to reach out beyond just your school district. Look at food policy councils, anti-hunger coalitions, park and rec departments, even housing authority sites can all make great partners in reaching children during the summer. So for those of you that do have an existing summer program, you should take a step back and do the mapping exercise as well, and then look at where are the gaps in service. Are there areas that are not being reached? Are there partners that are not being reached? For sites that are up and running, are there ways that you can increase the number of children that are being served at those sites? Can you bump up the activities that are going on? Can you make them more enticing? Can you do more marketing? There are lots of really great partnership, innovative programs to use as examples. For example, one way to drive more students or children to programs is an example from actually No Kid Hungry, where community members can actually send a text and find out where are the summer meal programs in their community. You know, almost everyone has a phone nowadays and can text, and it lends itself very well to accessibility and mobility. Another really innovative partnership example is a public school partnered with UPS to actually deliver the meals out to their summer sites. And I just want to give a shout out to one of the, if you're interested in finding out more information on that, there is a document called Food for People Case Study available if you would like to find out more about how that was done with UPS delivering the summer meals. So I'm moving on to just quickly cover the different types of meal service, because there is a lot of flexibility in the summer meals program, depending upon, again, the facilities and capacity and the community itself. So one model is called drop and go, and this is where usually it's a bag lunch setup where the meals are all cold bag lunches, and there is no, the sponsor is not providing a designated staff person to serve the meals. And so the community-based organization is responsible for doing any claiming or counting of meals and such. But it's a very nimble meal service model. Another model is called stay and serve, and this is where a sponsor would provide a staff person to stay and serve the meals. And they would be responsible for counting the meals and ensuring reimbursable meals are being served. And finally, the third model is food trucks and mobile food service. This has become very, very popular nowadays, and can add an element of fun and variety to meals, and can serve many sites in one day, and it can also provide visit sites where, you know, maybe the menu is constrained, maybe they can't go every day, but maybe once a week, and can add an element of variety and fun for the program. So moving on, for those of you that are school districts, just a few things to consider if you're thinking about starting a meal program. You want to think about what staffing you have, what central office staffing is needed to successfully plan and implement and maintain a summer meal program, while also ensuring enough adequate time off for them and to be able to prepare for the upcoming school year. Another area is operations and budget, just making sure there's clear expectations with any sites that you partner with. You know, if one way to do this is to have an online or an application, a pre-screening application for sites, and once the application is approved, you can have an MOU or an informal contract between the two of you, ensuring clear expectations. A third area is looking at if you operate a child and adult care feeding program, and how that program overlaps or intertwines with the summer meal program. Again, this is where I would highly encourage you to connect with your state program staff to make sure that you're staying within the regulations. But there definitely is something to consider when you're operating those programs. And finally, implementation timeline. And as No Kid Hungry suggests, one of the best ways to sustain, strengthen, and expand your summer meal programs is to approach planning as a year-round endeavor. It really is never too early to start reaching out and partnering with your team and ensuring alignment on goals and expectations. It's never too early. And with that, that concludes the high-level kind of primer overview of the summer meal program.
Zetta, thank you so much for all this information. And I know we've got folks on the line who are probably thinking about some questions here. We've got about 5 minutes for questions before we go on to our next speaker. So I would encourage those who are listening to go ahead and chat those in. But I'll go ahead and get us started, Zetta. Something that was going through my mind as you were sharing today is, you talked a lot about early planning and kind of getting a jump on it and how summer meal planning is really never stops. It's always never too early to get started with planning for the year ahead. But how do you get others involved in early planning in cases where, there are things that you as a sponsor may have your mind on, but maybe others aren't really thinking about summer meals yet? How do you get this on other people's radar so that you can plan effectively?
Sure. I think it's important to really make sure that you express the value of the program and the impact on the children. You can certainly share that, during the school year, many of the schools, especially in low-income areas, children are receiving 3 meals a day from the public school. And so when summer is in session, the children don't have access to the meals. That it makes it very, very difficult and challenging for them. And so really these organizations, the summer programs, have a real opportunity to have a very, very big impact on the children and their families. And it can also benefit their programs, making it appealing to the community for the children to want to participate if they can, not only get enrichment activities and social time and being with their peers, but also the nutrition and physical needs met at the program.
That's great. Thank you, Zetta. And we had a couple questions that came in. Lauren was asking about the drop-and-go model and was saying that it would be a really good, possibly a really interesting model for her group, which is serving children in rural areas. There was a question about time requirements on the model. I would just clarify for folks that that is one of the requirements of the summer meals program, is that meals be served during predetermined meal service times that are identified and shared with the state agency as part of the sponsor agreement that includes information on when and where meals are going to be served. And also it does still retain the congregate site requirement, which means that meals are consumed in a congregate, in a supervised setting on site. That being said, there are some flexibilities in terms of whole grains or whole vegetables that can be carried off site. Normally there's one whole grain or one whole fruit or vegetable item that can be carried off site. But generally speaking, the meals must be consumed in a supervised setting. There was a question about, Zetta, about with regard to the drop-and-go model, can you talk a little bit about how you claim meals for those purposes? I know this kind of gets at the importance of communication with the site staff. Can you talk about how you ensure that those meals are properly claimed under the drop-and-go model?
Yes, there would still need to be a staff person serving the meals and counting them and filling out some paperwork, but it wouldn't, generally the drop and go model, it would be drop and go from the sponsor perspective. So the sponsor would not be providing a staff person to do the counting and claiming, but that role would be filled by the program, the site program staff. It definitely there still has to be someone that counts and claims those meals. But generally, because it's a bagged lunch and it's a reimbursable meal, all of the components meet they're all in a bag. It's a little bit easier in terms of ensuring, reimbursable meals being served. And because you're not, if it's a site where all children are eligible for free meals, you're not, recording any student information or individual student information. It's a little bit easier on the CBO staff. But yes, there is still someone that is filling that function.
That's great. Thank you, Zetta. And we had a couple of more comments, looks like from Rachel, who was trying to determine the type of program interested in closed enrolled sites. We will follow up with that program comparison chart, so it's very easy to see the distinctions between the open sites, restricted open, closed enrolled sites, even the camps and migrant sites, which are perhaps somewhat less common, but can be really useful site types depending on the population you're trying to serve. And then also we have a question about a toolkit about drop-and-go sites. I'll use this opportunity to plug the Mobile Meals Toolkit that is available on our website, that we can also share information about that in the follow-up on today's webinar. And then there was also a question about offer versus serve. Currently, with the program regulations in their current form, offer versus serve is reserved for school food authority sponsors. However, the sites do not have to be at schools. It would be any site that is sponsored by a school food authority. There is that possibility. However, that would be at the discretion of the sponsor to choose to operate using the offer versus serve model. I would also note that there is a little bit of fluidity in terms of offer versus serve at this time, given the recent summer meals rescission and the rescission waivers that began in 2018. We actually have a webinar coming up on that with FRAC and Feeding America next Thursday, and we'll be sending information out about that webinar to those who are registered for today's event. So just want to thank everyone. We are running short on time for questions. We will try our best to follow up individually with folks who had questions as well, but also feel free to reach out. We will be sending out follow-up following today's webinar with a lot of resources that may answer some questions. We're also available after the fact through bestpractices@strength.org. So Zed, I want to thank you so much for sharing. And at this time, we are going to transition and go over to Mel Curtis, who, as we mentioned earlier, is a branch director of Shannon Valley YMCA of the YMCA of Center County, Pennsylvania. So Mel, very excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Emily. This first slide basically is going to show you a little bit about where we are, what we do. We are in a very rural area of central Pennsylvania. Although Penn State University is part of Center County, the county itself is really destitute on both ends. So a lot of times when you hear of Center County, you think of Penn State and you think everything's all well and good. But we are starting to see some issues happening through that area. Clearfield County, on the other hand, very high unemployment area. The child food insecurity rate is much higher. To give you an example, a couple of their schools are well over 85% free reduced lunch. So they are a real target market for us. We currently run 28 different sites across Center and Clearfield County during the summer. We started a new program last year. It's called the Travelin Table, which is a mobile feeding unit that we take out into the rural counties and to reach children. And I'll touch a little bit on that at the end. We also feed at all our sites. We take care of parents and the caregivers of the children. On funding partnerships, to understand this a little bit better, last year we spoke with an organization, St. Clair Child Services, and they do a lot with mental health, and they're a huge leader in Head Start programs in Pennsylvania. And I went in and sat down and talked with them, and walked out of a board meeting with a check for $85,000 to buy a brand new bus, which was the Travelin Table. We work very closely with a lot of our local grocery stores, businesses, the different nonprofit organizations that have related missions to what we do, churches and universities. To give you some ideas, when I go in and I'll sit down and talk to an organization or a business, one of the first things I think is very important is to build a relationship with that person. Uh, People really are more apt to listen to you if you go in and you actually talk from your heart, that you're just not there to get a check and walk out and never to be seen again. So that part is you have to show respect for the position that they hold. You may not like the person, but the position that they're holding carries a lot of weight. The other thing, you need to, when you do those types of things, you need to see that potentially long range, they may be something that's going to fit into you to become a stronger partner. Target your organizations that have a mission to help children and families. Alignment's the greatest way to get your foot into a door, be it through a service organization, be it through fire companies or anything like that. You have to look at the total big picture. A lot of times, I think a lot of different organizations will look at a business or an organization and say, well, maybe they might be interested, but maybe they're going a different direction. So you really have to sit down and look and see what's in the area. Offer to bring their people in and train them. We will bring people in, train them. We'll offer them, we'll ask them for their help. There's nothing greater that a person wants to hear is for you to ask them if there's a way that you could help them. It gives them volunteer opportunities, and a lot of businesses are looking for things like that today. How can they get their people engaged in the communities? Employers love that. We have a few employers in our local area that send people in constantly, and they also have a give back program, financial give back program, and we're starting to see a lot of those people who are donating funding to the program. Engage the churches in your community. This is really key. We've been very successful in this. I've had the opportunities to go in and talk to congregations, and these are things that I thought would just weren't available to us. Consider asking them for tithings. We have a numerous amount of churches that do tithings to us each week. And most churches, a lot of their groups that do mission work, so they have mission tithings, and a lot of them now are starting to bring their mission work back into the United States. And what better way to do it than into their own area? Encourage people within the church to be supportive of initiatives in their own community. I think, a lot of times people will look at something, and if it doesn't benefit something that they understand, they're not going to be part of it. On your partnerships, we started off with summer lunch in 2004. We've expanded to a weekend backpack program, and we've just recently expanded to our traveling table. Our traveling table program is sort of like this has been my baby. This is something that I always wanted to do. We provide cooking classes. We do preventive medical and dental screenings. And I mean, this is just something that's worked out very, very well for us. And through this program, we've been able to get Central Pennsylvania Food Bank involved in it. Penn State Health Medical Group is involved with this. St. Clair Child Service and AmeriHealth Curatis, which is an insurance company. We go out and we target areas of need. So in other words, we are very rural. And when I say that, a lot of times, you have to be able to be mobile. You have to be able to get out and find these areas. So it's nothing now for some of us to start riding around and looking at different areas of the two counties to what is available for us to go out and pick a location to feed children. So that's our first thing we'll work on really hard, to target the area. Then we need to understand the demand for the program or services among the targeted area. Do they need medical? Do they need dental? And I think a lot of times what happens is, those are things that are going to draw the kids into the program. Identify organizations that seeking to serve your target population, be it a dental association or anything like that, a library that gives out books. There's a lot of organizations that can make your summer meal program much larger and much more successful. How to align your efforts? That's pretty much an open question. And when I say that, there's other sources that are out there, food banks, there's other backpack programs. There's potentially a lot of churches in our area do meals on a weekly basis, and they'll switch like from church to church each week. You have to be able to go in and meet with these people, and we need to bring everybody to one table so we're not really working against each other. The more people that we have that understand what we're trying to accomplish, the end result is going to be much better. A lot of people, I think, a lot of times will say, well, we have a church that does free meals every Saturday or every Sunday or whatever. But are you reaching everybody that you could potentially reach in the area where that church is? So if you bring all the stakeholders together, I think it's going to work out much better. Next slide, please. Okay, the traveling table. This is a bus. It's a 2020 Bluebird bus. It has a full-size commercial kitchen on it. We teach cooking classes. We'll go into an area where we will take the foods that people are receiving through SNAP, and we'll show them how to prepare different types of foods. And when we do this, we'll take nutritionists with us from some of the hospitals in the area. We do preventive medical and dental screenings through Penn State Health. We give out personal hygiene kits through one of our partners, and each one's different. They're set up for boys, girls, adults, or whatever. We give out books. We've been able to partner with people that gives us box after box of brand new books that we're able to get in these children's hands so they can read during the summer, so they're not going through summer reading loss. We do a mock farmers market, which is something I really like. What we do is we give the kids Y bucks, much like Monopoly money, and they will go through and pick out the foods that they want. But they're also learning a little bit about math, how to use money correctly, what they can buy with the money that they do have. We also do a a fitness sports component, and we use college interns for this. And basically what this does is this gets the kids up and moving during the summer so they're not sedentary and just hanging out at the house playing games and things. This vehicle is used year round. It's just not a 3 to 4 month type vehicle. Right now, we're currently going into elementary schools all through the area, and we teach nutrition classes to the children. One of the most successful programs that we've done with this in doing these classes is we do taste testing with these children. The kids, we're giving them food that I know that they are not getting at home. And we get this through the food bank. We get this through some local grocery stores. And the kids absolutely love it. And they want to learn more and more about it. But it's also a great way that they see this and they understand, when they see this bus, it's going down the road, it's going to stop somewhere and it's going to have food on. So these kids are very interested in that. It's also a way to get the information out to the kids. Look, during the summer, we're going to be at these different sites. You can come in and do free meals and do all different types of programming with us. Next, please. So in a nutshell, basically what we've been able to accomplish since 2004, we're more of a boots on the ground type operation. I've always looked at things that it's much easier for me to go out and do it and ask for forgiveness afterwards, because my feeling is if I go out and I talk to a business or a corporation or a church or whatever, I am the voice of these children, that they can't go out and talk to these people about getting them food and things like that. So every time I walk in, this is my sole purpose, that I am their voice, that I have to accomplish different types of programming to make sure that these children have food each day. Thank you.
Mel, thank you so much. And it's obviously such a powerful story of the way you're able to serve your community and center and Clearfield counties, and the creative ways that you have designed programs to do that, and how really, you are providing a meal through the Travelin Table and other programs, but really so much more than that as well, by providing the programming, the screenings, and access to nutrition education and the farmers market. Thank you so much for sharing. I've got a couple of questions, and I know we're already starting to have a couple of questions come in as well. I would encourage others to go ahead and send those in if you've got anything you'd like to ask Mel about his program. But Mel, I'd like to start off by asking, you work with so many different partners, and you've brought so many people to the table to support the programs that you operate. How do you know who to approach for partnerships? How do you identify and target organizations and individuals who can help you achieve your mission?
Well, very simply, I believe that everyone out there is potentially a donor, a potential partner, or a volunteer. And why I say that is, people in businesses are looking for ways to make their areas better, to make their communities better. Because what happens is if communities start to run down, you lose workforces, schools start to suffer and things like that. So, I will basically go in and I'll ask them for their help, much like, let's say that Derek, you were a president of a company here, and I know that you have a lot of impact in the community. And so I might come in and ask to meet with you and ask you a question along the lines of, I know you probably wouldn't be interested because you're a very busy person, but who do you know that could help me out? Well, chances are you're sitting there and say, well, I can do that. Okay. And so you're basically giving it to somebody and you're taking it back away from them. So I think if we sit back and we sort of pick and choose who we talk to, we're not doing ourselves justice or our program justice.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that, Mel. And I think a lot of that, just that getting the word out and approaching folks and being bold with those asks is such a big part, such a big key to success. So thank you for that. Mel, we've gotten several questions that have come in. I'm going to check down through some of these. We got a question from Daisy in California. Where do you actually offer or provide nutrition classes and other activities? Are these happening on the bus? Are they happening everywhere that the bus goes? Are they happening next to the bus? I think folks just have some questions about the logistics of how you deliver programming with the Travelin Table.
Okay, one of the things that we'll do, we'll go into a school setting. We take the bus in, and what we'll usually do is try to break down through the classrooms to go no more than 20 children at a time. So we'll be on the bus, we'll be in the school, we'll have the farmer's market on the outside of the bus, and if need be, we'll have a second classroom in the school where we'll be doing nutrition games with them. Things on the bus that we'll do, we will go into their cafeteria as an end result, and that's where we'll do the taste testing. One of the unique things on the bus is, you get kids K through 6 walking onto a bus. First of all, you can't miss it the way that it's wrapped. But you get inside of it, and they have no idea. They're used to walking onto a bus and seeing seats. Where we go in, we have TVs in there, we have medical chairs in there, we have different workstations in there. So kids get excited over things, and that works out very well. So that's sort of like the attention getter. The nutrition part is actually taught in the classrooms. And again, we're working with multiple facilities and partners on this, where we go in and we'll spend 15 to 20 minutes teaching them, different things about nutrition. Then a lot of the schools we will ask in advance how they have aligned their health their health classes and what they're teaching on nutrition. So it gives us sort of a better idea. The farmers market is great. The kids absolutely love that, because it's sort of like, it's a game. And I think to create excitement with kids, to get kids involved in anything, you have to make it exciting. If they're not excited about it, you're really, now you have another battle on your hands. Why do I want to go do this, or why do I want to go do that? And the taste testing is just, it's an absolute ride. It's a blast. The food just totally disappears so quickly.
That's great. And Mel, you were talking about the farmers market and the white bucks, and I know on a previous call, just a conversation that you and I had, that's something that you were really passionate about. Nancy had a question. She just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. Can you share a little bit about how you set up the farmers market, how you dispense the Y bucks, and kind of how that works, and why you're so convinced that this is a great way for kids to have fun, but also to be learning at the same time?
Well, one of the I mean, you can look at this a lot of different ways. Kids, number one, you're talking to them about money. You know, you're handing them plain money, so which they think is pretty cool. Uh, then you have all this food stretched out on a table. So you know you're going from every fruit and vegetable that you can possibly get from a local grocery store through a food bank or whatever, and you have this laying out on the table, and you put a price on that, like a tag on the front of the table for each item. So the kids will walk down through, and if a child doesn't know what something is, you know, like if you say, okay, this is broccoli. Well, a lot of kids won't eat broccoli because they heard someone else say broccoli has a funny taste to it. So you don't really tell them what it is. So the kids will buy it, and then they'll, you know, they take it home. It's theirs to keep. But I mean, a lot of kids will try right there, and they get really excited about it. And I think, you know, to them, you make it a game because that's what creates the excitement. And I think the reason I like it is, you know, a lot of kids, we did like kiwi grapes, and some of these kids looked at it and they had no clue what they were whatsoever at all. There was not one of those kids who ate those who said that they did not like them. They never had them in their life. Now, we're dealing with a lot of children in rural pocketed areas in some of these schools that, you know, the only meals that they are getting is what they're getting at school, be it the breakfast and the lunch and things like that. So therefore, any types of food that they get, you know, they're going to cling to, and they're going to get excited about it. Now, I'll take that a step further.
Yeah.
Backpack, our backpack program we have, which we do on the weekends. A lot of those kids will. I've had parents send me pictures. They take the food home. They'll sit down in the living room and they spread it all out, and they get really excited about it. And you know, because they're now gone from a situation where they didn't really know if they were going to get much to eat over the weekend. Maybe they would get something, you know, like one meal a day or whatever. So now all of a sudden they have this food, and they become really excited about it.
That's great. That's great to hear, Mel. And Karen just wrote in and said that she's really loving all of these suggestions that you're giving, and mentioned that she's had a hard time getting her food covered to understand the value of having corporations volunteer as part of their program. Located in a rural area, they're providing vouchers to kids at a local farmers market, and the farmers are loving that as well, by giving kids an opportunity to participate in that process. I feel like Karen's touching on something that we had discussed previously, Mel, as well, is, you know, thinking about engaging partners in different ways, right? Engaging corporations as volunteers, having a partnership opportunity that evolves into a funding opportunity. How do you go about cultivating these partnerships, Mel? And how, you know, more specifically, how do you turn a partner, maybe a volunteer partner, into a donor, or a donor to a partner, or vice versa?
Okay, I'll give you an example. One of the corporations that's here in our local area, it's called Diamondback Truck Covers. It's a relatively new corporation that's growing very quickly. It's got a lot of national recognition, and what they do is they give every employee that they have, they have the opportunity to give, I believe it's $350 a year to a cause that employee is passionate about. So when I initially met with the CEO of the company, and it was a great meeting because his background is he's really into taking care of children. He does a lot of mission work and things like that. So I asked him if he'd be willing to, you know, offer some of his employees to come in and help us, you know, to get summer lunch programs ready, to get other different programs ready, backpacks and things like that. So he started sending people down, and they started doing all different types of fundraisers at work to raise money to make sure that kids are getting food. So if you take a volunteer and you show them what you're doing, you actually put them in the area. You know, they're on their boots are on the ground, they're working, they're helping you. Now all of a sudden they may have been giving money to something else, but once they see what they're doing and they see the results of it, they're more than willing to to give money back to you. A real good example, a retired teacher who is a member of my YMCA, a short little lady who was a librarian. She came into my office one day and she had that look on her face that she wanted to probably rip my face off. And we were talking about food programs. And she said to me, "Do you realize what you're doing to these children?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "You're setting these kids up to be bullied." So I said to her, I said, "Well, that hasn't been proven. And I want to show you why it hasn't been proven. I want you to be part of this program." So she started coming and helping us out with different types of programs. And she took a real strong liking to our backpack program. And she was delivering the backpacks to one of the schools. And one day when she was walking out of the schools after delivering the backpacks, uh, a mother walked up to her, put her arms around this lady, and was crying. And she said, "I want to thank you because I had no idea how I was going to feed my kids on the weekend." So if we can get our volunteers to be part of what we're doing and actually see the results, it makes it so much easier. Then they will turn in, because the nice part about it is that they talk. When somebody does something they feel really good about, they're going to go out and they're going to talk to their friends. "Look, I'm part of this program. It's really great. We're helping feed kids," stuff like that. You can't buy any type of PR for what that conversation was all about. So we do the same thing with businesses. We recognize our business tremendously. We have our own Facebook page for our anti-hunger program, and if a major corporation donates to us, does anything for us, we plaster their name all over the place. We let them know that this corporation truly cares about the community and they're giving back to the community.
That's great. Thank you again, Mel, so much. And we have Cindy who wrote in, following up, building on some of what you were talking about earlier with the farmers market, about in their program, they provide items that the child may not typically see on a daily basis, food items, and they provide trading cards with each of the food items to tell families where that food is grown, what it looks like, what it's used for, how to prepare it. So, building on the idea of kind of providing information about how that works and how to connect families to food assistance and then to foods maybe that may not be available on a daily basis, and providing information about where it's grown, how to prepare it, how to use those foods and incorporate it into their diet and meals that they may be preparing. We are pretty much out of time. I want to thank you so much, Mel, for sharing all this information. And I just want to call out for folks that actually Mel's the program at the Moshannon Valley YMCA, the YMCA of Center County, is featured in No Kid Hungry's Hunger Innovation Report. We'll send a link out to that innovation report, which includes examples of how folks are innovating to connect kids with food, to make programs like summer meals work better for families and communities. Some great examples in the report, and we'll share that out to follow up. So Mel and Zeta, to both of you, I want to thank you so much for the time and for sharing today. And in conclusion, before we wrap up today, just want to highlight for everyone that we have our next webinar will be on Tuesday, February 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern, Best Practices for Summer Meals Menu Planning. In the interim, if there's a question that you think about later, or a question that you have about the program today, or any other resources that No Kid Hungry may have that can support your work as a summer meals provider, as someone who supports administration of these programs, or if you're someone new to summer meals, please reach out to us at bestpractices@strength.org. Again, I'm Derek Lambert. I also want to call out and let folks know that in February and moving forward, my colleague Emily Pia, who you heard from earlier, will also be hosting a number of these webinars moving forward. So we're very excited for Emily to be helping to lead this work. We know we're going to have some great panelists, and beginning in February when we turn our attention to menu planning for summer meals. So Zeta, Mel, thank you again for sharing so much information today with our attendees and everyone who was able to sign up and tune in. Best of luck in the month ahead. Stay warm out there. And remember, it's never too early to start planning for summer meals, and No Kid Hungry is here to support that work. Thanks so much. Have a good day.